President Trump has not held a campaign rally in 10 weeks due to social distancing measures, but his brand remains strong with help from merchandise sold online. Selling swag is just one of the ways campaigns engage with supporters and spread their messages. MAGA merch sold on the Trump campaign website turns people, cars, and even dogs into walking advertisements for the president's re-election. Sarah Ewall-Weiss has been covering this and joins me now. Sarah, good to see you. The Trump campaign put out some 30,000 Facebook ads last month. What kind of messaging are they deploying?
Yeah, so I actually went and looked at these ads because I was curious to see what the messaging was in the middle of a pandemic. And I started to notice a trend with both the Biden and the Trump campaigns. The Biden campaign did not have any ads related to merchandise, but a lot of the Trump campaign ads were selling everything from dog collars to hats to welcome mats. And we realized that the merchandise for the Trump campaign has really permeated every aspect of this campaign, despite it moving online. When they hold events on their stream, the Trump campaign holds breaks where they advertise different merchandise. One of his aides during an event joked about being the QVC. If you look at their Facebook ads, we reviewed about 30,000. About 10% of those are selling merchandise for the Trump campaign. And then if you look at their emails, they're sending out tons of emails. Many of those are selling different pieces of campaign gear. The campaign has really been able to shift quickly from all of the merchandise you've seen for the past couple of years to some items that are specifically tailored because people are at home, be it puzzles or welcome mats. It's really been a part of their ability to engage with their supporters continually. And of course, merchandise, it serves two purposes. One, it's small dollar donations that people are actually giving when they get gear, but also it's a data gathering mechanism because they're giving their information so that they can be followed up with in terms of having their emails, having their addresses, and their contact information moving forward.
It's really interesting to hear how the campaign has shifted in such a relatively short period of time. So, Sarah, how much is the Trump campaign spending on merchandise and how much are they making?
Right. So we actually looked at their filings with the FEC since 2017, and it turns out they spent a little over $10 million on merchandise in that time frame. Of course, that does not include what their joint fundraising committees with Republicans are spending. They've spent into the tens of millions of dollars, and they've raised millions of dollars. In March and April alone, the Trump campaign tells us that they made $4 million off of merchandise sales. Of course, the president was a salesman before he even entered the political arena, and this has been a huge component even for his first campaign in 2016, where he spent over $17 million on merchandise, and that merchandise, including those MAGA hats, have continued to be sold throughout this entire election and his first term in office. Of course, when you look at it, it's kind of ironic because President Obama actually was the first one to use merchandise to raise funds back in 2007. Before that, campaigns were simply purchasing it from a third party and giving it away. Of course, the Obama campaign at the time didn't have money, and so they went to the FEC asking if they could give the merchandise in exchange for donations. And that's really how this started to take off in the campaign arena.
So you mentioned the Biden campaign earlier. How has the pandemic impacted the Biden campaign merchandising operation?
Right. So when we looked at the Biden ads, of course, on Facebook, there were no ads about merchandise, which raised some questions. Most of their messaging is about restoring the soul of the nation. They also tout endorsements in their Facebook ads. But it turns out if you go to their campaign merchandise store, for several weeks, it was not up and running. There was a message at the top saying you could place your orders, but they were not being fulfilled because of the pandemic. Of course, in recent days, that message has since been removed as states start to reopen. But I spoke with the campaign, and they told me that those decisions were being made in consultation with their health advisory committee. And of course, all of their decisions were being made with the health and safety of both their supporters as well as their vendors in mind. Interestingly enough, the lack of merchandise sales during the month of April for the Biden campaign did not impact their fundraising. They announced last week they raised about just over $60 million during April, whereas the Trump campaign raised $61 million. So they've been able to scale up extremely quickly in terms of fundraising since he became the presumptive nominee. With that said, the Biden campaign has about $100 million cash on hand, according to the campaign manager, whereas the Trump campaign announced last week they have $250 million cash on hand. So they're still behind in terms of fundraising overall. Both campaigns will be filing their fundraising for April with the FEC this week.
And Sarah, what is the Biden camp's view regarding the Trump campaign's merchandising in the middle of this pandemic?
They really didn't want to speak to that when I asked about it. What we did talk about was how they specifically are scaling up their digital efforts. They did announce this week that they were doubling their digital staff in terms of hires, and they've also been expanding their ground game. Of course, they also mentioned that they were unveiling a new streaming platform in the digital age of campaigning this weekend. In terms of staff, they are announcing that they were going to hire, or rather onboard, their leadership teams for battleground states in June. They're working with the state parties and the national party to hire or onboard about 600 campaign field organizers in June as well. So they really start to scale up. Something to keep in mind when you talk about this campaign and transitioning from the primary to the general election season is that the Biden campaign is now, while dealing with the coronavirus, is trying to scale up digitally. Of course, when you were looking back at 2016, at this point in time, since we were still in May, the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Bernie Sanders campaign were still in a battle just for the nomination. So they've had a little bit of a different situation here. Of course, the pandemic threw everything into a totally different feel. The campaign manager for Biden's campaign was asked on Friday when he will hit the road again to campaign, and she said they will do that when the timing is right.
Yeah, without that ability to hit the campaign trail and shake hands and see people, you do wonder how it is that these candidates are going to foster and maintain connections with voters out there. All right, Sarah Ewald-Weiss for us. Sarah, great to have your reporting. Thank you so much.